Bryant going for the shot bowl. It's gone. He's got it again, and he's got both the Scottish bowls out. David Bryant is the new champion of the world. What a shot. What a result. David Bryant has won the championship of the world for the third time.
Well, that's really the sort of bowl, David, that's won you many, many titles over the years, including 3 world outdoor singles titles. Over how many years exactly?
Well, I started as a boy when I was about 6 or 7, and I played lawn bowls then. Joined the Cleveland Club when I was 16, so I've been a member of the Cleveland Club for over 40 years.
And during most of that time, you've been using the same type of bowl. So the new bowler comes along and says, I want to buy a new set of bowls. What does the master advise?
The first, the most important thing on the lot is the bowl has to be comfortable in his hand. Comfort is everything. He's got to be relaxed when he's holding the bowl in his hands, and therefore, the best way to test it, in my opinion, is to go around the circumference of the bowl with your thumb and your second finger. In other words, that is the widest span you can get. And if you can meet in the middle comfortably, then that is approximately the right size. The other test is turn the bowl upside down. If you can sort of try to imagine you were dapping it on the ground and it won't go out your hand, you can cling onto it, then you have a good purchase on the bowl and it's not going to slip.
Got to be a little careful when you do it.
Yes, yes, and mind people's toes. If I could just hold that one there, which is the small bowl, if I apply the same procedure there, you will notice that I have quite a overlap with my fingers. That means that bowl is too small for me. It's very, very important that the bowl should be the right size. If it's too big, it'll slip out your hand. If it's too small, you overgrip it, and you don't get the kind of smooth flowing delivery you want. It should come off the fingers. It comes in several sizes. Actually, there are 9 sizes. There used to be 7 sizes, 1 to 7, and this is size 6, the largest but one.
Of course, there's not very much difference between one size and the next, but when you're talking about the size 0 and the size 7, quite a bit of difference.
Oh, a vast difference.
Well, there we have it. The
Yes.
size 0 and the size 7.
Yes, a bit difference in size and quite a difference in weight as well.
All flat green bowls are bias number 3, but they don't all take the same bend to the jack.
Far from it. They vary considerably.
So what sort of bend does David Bryant like in his set of bowls?
I like a bowl indoors which is a slightly below average bias, because our indoor greens are so much faster that if you have a wider drawing bowl, you've got to take quite a big arc. You have to go into the next rink. So you want a bowl that will sit within your own rink, and you can calculate the margin of error far more easily. Whereas outdoors, on the grass greens, particularly at the beginning of the season, where the arc of the bowl is reduced very, very much because the greens are so heavy, you want a bowl which takes a generous arc. Ideally, it's nice to have more than one set of bowls for the indoor and the outdoor game. But if a player was going to take up the game and was going to just buy his first set of bowls, I would go for a bowl of an average arc, which can be used quite comfortably, both indoor and out.
The large bowl, the size 7, will obviously weigh more than the small bowl, the size 0.
Yes, indeed, probably 12 ounces or more. That, for instance, is a very big bowl. It's slightly too big for me, and I like a big bowl. That one, on the other hand, is very, very light. And it was, in fact, because of this that they introduced the heavyweight bowl. They felt that people using a small bowl such as this were at such a disadvantage when playing against somebody using a large bowl. Obviously, the ladies tend to use the smaller bowl, and they tend to go for the heavyweight bowl, which is still the same size but has greater density. The men, if they use a larger size, invariably don't bother with the heavyweight bowl. The heavyweight bowl is very good indoors, but not so good outdoors. Our greens are soft and the heavyweight bowl beds in, and it tends to not react properly. It tends to kill the bias. But certainly it's worth using indoors, and certainly if you've got a small hand, give it a go. It's nice if you've got more than one set to have the variations, but if you're going to choose the ideal bowl for most conditions, it has to be a bowl of average bias. So therefore, a bowl which is comfortable in the hands and of average bias. Well, the most important thing in bowls is when you step on the mat, you must be comfortable. Your whole stance must be comfortable, and if your grip isn't comfortable, then you're going to feel awkward. So the thing is to get the bowl comfortably in the hand, line it up on the green, and let the bowl just rest in the hand and feel completely comfortable. If we turn the bowl over, we can see that the fingers run along parallel, that is, to the running base of the bowl. Now, some people have that middle finger right in the middle of the bowl. If it suits you, then do it. I personally like my two fingers taking the weight of the bowl. Those two there. Now, those are taking the weight of the bowl. When we apply the other fingers, my hand is slightly on an angle. The bowl is sitting in it there. So therefore, that is the most comfortable position for me. Some people can bring their hand round like that. Immediately I feel tension. Now tension is no good. You must be comfortable, as you already said. So find the most comfortable position. What we have to remember is, with a bad delivery, if the bowl wobbles, it's usually because those fingers are coming across the face of the bowl. They're not parallel. And therefore the bowl is going out the side and is wobbling. Or this little finger is coming too high up, and at the last minute that little finger is coming into play and causing a wobble.
So keep it comfortable, but then a variation of different kinds of grip?
Yes, there are three grips. There's the cradle grip, the claw grip, and the finger grip. Now the cradle grip is where the hand acts as a cradle. The bowl is dropped into it. It is used by people that have short thumbs. They haven't got much span between the thumb and the finger. I've got a reasonable span. I can get quite a distance from my fingertip to my thumb tip, and therefore I can come up over the bowl. But some people can't. They have to cradle the bowl, and their thumb comes up the side, and the little finger comes round there, and they grip the little finger and the thumb.
It's hardly a grip at all.
No, it isn't, and it sits in the palm of the hand. It's not a grip. It is not a lot of feel to the grip, as far as I'm concerned, but there are some wonderful bowlers around that use this type of grip. The second grip is the claw, where really we just move the thumb up onto the ring, approximately on the ring. It hasn't got to be on the ring, as long as it's comfortable. It can be inside the ring or just outside the ring. But it is more of a claw, and as we can see, the bowl is now moved forward out of the palm, and there is room in here. Now the third and last grip is the finger grip, where it's an extension of the claw. You just move the bowl further forward, and you now have a bigger gap still. We adopt our stance on the mat with both feet clearly within the confines of the mat. You're actually foot-faulting. You've got your feet over the end. Have both feet well within the confines of the mat. Then you are in the correct position, and you will not contravene any laws. We then make ourselves comfortable. At all times in this game of bowls, we have to be relaxed and comfortable. Knees possibly slightly bent, feeling that we're not stiff in any way. There is no tension. Now, we have to have a point of aim. So when we're going to deliver the bowl, we look at the point of aim, we keep our eyes firmly riveted on it, and we step towards that point of aim with our left foot if we're right-handed. If we're left-handed, of course, we step forward with our right foot. In your case, you're right-handed, so you step forward with your left foot towards the point of aim, drawing your right arm back, and then bending your knees, roll the bowl down that line.
Where should I hold the bowl? Should I hold it high or low?
You hold it in the position which is most comfortable. If you're doing anything wrong, you will be immediately told. Put it in the place which is most comfortable. Some people hold it high, some people low.
Yes, I've seen some people hold it just in front of their nose.
Well, you see, they have a point of aim, and they're actually lining the bowl up with a point of aim to make sure they play down that line.
So, I stand with my feet together, nice and comfortably. I look at the point of aim, I step forward my left foot.
Your left foot. Yes, that was very good. And it was interesting to note, when you delivered, you didn't wave your left hand around aimlessly. You dropped it onto your knee. That helps to stabilize you, and the greatest benefit of that is under fast conditions. When the greens are fast and you're having to deliver in slow motion. The slower you have to deliver, the more you are likely to wobble. There are basically 4 stances. The athletic, the fixed, the semi-fixed, and the crouch. The first, the athletic or upright stance, is by far the most popular throughout the world. The fixed stance is where the front foot is firmly anchored. This is particularly popular amongst the disabled bowlers. The semi-fixed, or South African clinic style, is probably the most interesting of all the stances. In this, the player partially takes his forward step and completes it during delivery. This, in turn, ensures that he plays good line. There are various forms of crouch in which a bowler takes a stance close to the ground. Here we see my own particular style. First of all, I get down and sit basically on my haunches. I can stay here probably for several minutes. I feel quite comfortable. I'm supporting my own weight, so therefore it's not tiring like a semi-crouch where you're having to hold your weight halfway down. Having got in this position, I pick up the bowl and I line myself up with my point of aim, and then, as in all other deliveries, keeping my eye firmly fixed on the point of aim, I rise and deliver and go straight through, keeping my head still and my eyes firmly fixed on the point of aim.
Well, I think that will answer a lot of people's questions, David, about the David Bryant crouch. But another question I hear people asking is, why does David Bryant twist his wrist in his backswing?
Well, to me, the most relaxed position for the hand, as I'm addressing delivery, is on a 45-degree angle. That, to me, gives tension down the arm. So I just turn the palm slightly and that's relaxed. Similarly, I don't stand like that. Nobody stands actually like that. I'm not suggesting that, but that to me gives tension. As soon as I turn the palms and I sort of flop, if you like, that's how the arm swings, and that's the relaxed position. Now, if I want to go, the arms go back behind me, I have to invert the palm. I can actually, of course, touch them behind my back. But if we keep our palms pointing up the green, if we bring them back to our sides, fine. But as soon as we go back behind, they leave our body. They've got to go outwards. No way can we touch our hands behind our back or even come through straight, because they want to go out. In order for the hand to go back in a straight line, we have to move our hips, and it goes back perfectly. Now, when we think about the semi-fixed stance that we've just been discussing, we put one foot in front of the other. Now, as soon as we put that foot in front of the other, we've moved the hips. So therefore, the arm can now go through in a straight line without any tension. There's no tension in that at all. Now it's going through nice and easy. But our body is actually pointing that way. The arm is going that way. Whereas with my own particular stance, by turning my palm, my body is facing down a line and my arm is going down the same line. Both are quite all right. There's nothing wrong with them. The only thing I would say on my own particular stance, it is not an easy stance for somebody middle-aged to adopt, because it requires a lot of timing. As I pick up a bowl, and I get on the mat, I address my line. As I come up, I twist my wrist, and when I deliver the bowl should be like that. Now, if I'm a bit late in my delivery, a bit wrong with my timing, the bowl is gone out. Or if I'm a bit early, I hit the ground and the bowl is leaning in. So in other words, it has to be consistent timing all the time, otherwise the bowl is leaning inwards, or it's leaning outwards, or it's perfectly upright.
When we were talking about stance and delivery, we mentioned the point of aim. Now, the point of aim is anywhere but the jack.
Yes, that is correct, because a bowl has a bias and inscribes an arc to the jack. So therefore you have to bowl the bowl away from the line of the jack for it to come back to it. Right,
well, here's a bowl. Can you show us which is the bias side?
Well, on every bowl you have a big disc and a small disc. Now this is the big disc, and this is the small disc. Notice on this particular bowl, it's a rose. So the small rose is the bias side, the large rose is the non-bias side. But it needn't necessarily be an emblem like a rose, it could be somebody's initials. Sometimes the discs are plain. In other words, there's nothing in the actual disc at all, but there's still a big disc and a small disc. Now, if I hold the bowl so, and I look down the green, and I put the big disc to the right, it means that I bowl to the right. In other words, I don't bowl straight at the jack, I bowl out to the right, and the bowl will describe an arc back. That is what we call the forehand. So the right-hand side of the rink, to the right-hander, is the forehand. Conversely, the left-hand side of the rink, to the right-hander, is the backhand. So if I put the big disc to the left, and I bowl out to the left, the bias side is on the right. Remember, the little disc, it will bring it back around.
So the terms forehand and backhand. Would you like to demonstrate them?
Right, now I'm going to deliver on the forehand. So I'm stepping on the mat with the big disc facing to the right-hand side of the rink, the little disc to the left-hand side, the little disc being the bias will bring it back around. Now I don't aim at the jack, I bowl out to the side of the rink away from the jack, and this will make an arc from, as I look down the green, from right to left. And the weight looks pretty good on this one, it should be close. Right, so conversely, if I reverse the discs, that is, I now move the big disc to the left-hand side of the rink, remembering still that the little disc is the bias side, and I bowl out to the left, it will describe an arc coming back from left to right. You have to have line and length. The two go together to produce the perfect bowl, but I think we have to deal with them individually, coach them individually, and the first thing we'll look at is line. When we step onto the mat, it is very important that we point our right foot down the line of play if we are right-handed. If we are left-handed, we step on with the left foot and point it down the line of play. But I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put my right foot on, and I'm going to point it at my line of aim. Now, if we look at the far bank, we will notice that there is a yellow peg on the bank. Now, I estimate that that is where I shall have to aim for my bowl to inscribe an arc on the backhand into the jack. Now, we've got a line down the middle of the rink quite deliberately here, showing us the middle line, and every bowl delivered on a correct line should finish in the middle of the rink, regardless of the amount of weight behind it. In other words, as long as the bowl finishes on the green, if it's bowled along the line with varying paces, it will all finish in the middle of the rink. Now, we also have a delivery line running through to the yellow peg on the bank. Now, that is the imaginary line that you're going to play down, and approximately 3/4 of the way down the green, there is an imaginary shoulder. Now, when we refer to the shoulder, I refer to the shoulder of the arc. That's the imaginary shoulder where I'm going to imagine that the bow will actually bend and start its journey back towards the jack. Of course, I say the imaginary shoulder because the bowl has a bias, and as soon as the bowl leaves my hand, it will start to inscribe an arc. So when it reaches its widest point, the shoulder, it will be actually inside the imaginary shoulder. So we have an imaginary line and a true line to the jack. The bowl inscribes the true line. In our mind, we draw an imaginary line, and the imaginary line, as I've already said, is the line going down to the peg.
Now, you won't normally have that yellow peg on the far end. What do you normally look for?
I have to look at anything in the periphery. In other words, tables, chairs, spectators, sometimes bowls, bags. They shouldn't be there, of course, because it's against the rule to have a bag or anything like that on the end of the green, because it can be used as a point of aim. But anything legitimate, that it can be legitimately there, I look at and find out the one that is going to suit the particular bias of my bowl, the particular arc of my bowl. So it's really a question of trial and error until you get it right.
And it's all on a particular green on a particular day?
That's correct. You see, indoors you have nothing on the actual green itself because it's a carpet and it's all the same colour. But outdoors, grass being of different textures and different colours, the green can become quite mottled, and you might find a particularly lush area that stands out that is a very good marker for you. You may not bowl over it, but you know if you bowl just inside it or just around it, you'll get the perfect line. So you can use that as a point of reference.
You've shown us now how you select a line and how you can see that line and how you can face the point of aim. How do you make sure you bowl along it?
Well, that, of course, is the harder part. By trial and error, you'll select the right point of aim, the right line, but bowling along it is a question of perfect delivery. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something, obviously, you have to practice and keep practicing until you perfect. But when I step on the mat and I said, I will step on my right foot, I bring my left up alongside it, I get it in a comfortable position, which we've already talked about. In my particular instance, I go down into the crouch, my own delivery. I'm now getting nice and comfortable because I'm having to set myself looking along that line. I have my eye firmly fixed on the point of aim, and it must remain there at all times. Well, certainly, when I'm going to deliver, I must try and keep my head still. Right, I feel I'm ready now to deliver. I rise up. Should be the easy one. It should be.
Well, David, length, that's sometimes called weight or strength, and it's all to do with the amount of momentum you put behind the bowl. I believe there are quite a number of factors that affect it.
Yes, there are 5 in actual fact, David, and the first one is stance.
Stance? You mean the way you stand on the mat?
Correct, yes.
Right, let's have a look at that.
Well, there are various stances. I will use the upright stance because this is the stance most widely used, the upright or the athletic. Now, I can stand in a very high position, or I can stand in a slightly bent position, or I can stand in a low position. Now, what these 3 positions do is allow me to play the bowl with varying paces. If I stand high, it allows me to use a long backswing and a long step. If I stand medium height, it restricts my backswing and step, but still allows me to take a generous backswing and step. But if I get very low, I'm automatically going to use a short backswing. I can use no backswing at all, virtually, or I can use a little backswing, but the step is bound to be governed as well by the backswing. It's going to be quite short.
But you've already mentioned some of the other factors, like the length of the step and the length of the backswing.
Yes, that is the second factor, length of step and length of backswing. Those control the amount of weight that you put behind the bowl.
So that's the second factor then, and they're interlinked.
They are interlinked, and also the speed or tempo with which you deliver the bowl. Obviously, the higher you stand, the greater the backswing, the greater the step, and the more tempo, the more speed you can put behind it. Because as soon as you take your arm back and you take a big step, it's difficult not to go forward rather quickly. If you take a long backswing, a long step, you are going to walk quickly, aren't you? I mean, the longer your step you take, the quicker you walk. But it's exactly the same when you're stepping off the mat. If you take a long backswing and a long step, you come forward more quickly.
So right, that's the first three then. You've got the height of your stance, you've got the length of the backswing, and you've got the speed of the forward swing. What's the next one?
The fourth one, again, very closely interrelated, is body weight forward body weight.
Well, that sounds a bit complicated.
Well, if, for instance, and I'll deliver this bowl, if, for instance, I'm on a very heavy outdoor green, and it really is heavy, it's right at the beginning of the season, the grass isn't cut down, the bowls are digging in, if you like, I have to hold my bowl high and I've got to put a lot behind it. So therefore, I'm going to take a long backswing, a long step, a very high tempo, and I'm going to put the body weight right behind it to get it up the green. In fact, to such a degree, I should probably raise my back foot behind me and I will probably follow through down the line. So this is the type of delivery I would use at the beginning of the season on a very heavy green. Probably going down with no more grass than that, no more of an arc than that, because it's so heavy.
So we're going to watch how your body weight comes through with the bowl.
That is correct. I hold the bowl high, which allows me the nice long pendulum. I hold it high, I take aim, my point of aim, I take a long step, and I go right through. And my foot comes up behind me as I deliver it.
So that's when you put your body weight behind the bowl. For a faster green, I suppose, you put less body weight behind the bowl.
If you were playing on a very fast green in the southern hemisphere, there is a little trick which they use which stops you putting the body weight forward, and that is dropping the right knee. For instance, using the upright stance, but getting right down low, taking the weight on the knee. The lower you get, the shorter the backswing. You can't take a very big backswing, because the further you bring your arm back, the more your head wants to go down. So we can only take a short backswing and a short step. And if you drop that right knee, it stops you putting too much weight over the bowl. In other words, your shoulders won't go over the bowl. So you deliver it quite slowly. You reduce the tempo and deliver quite smoothly, and keeping your eye firmly fixed on the line, the way it goes. The follow-through is still the same. Although you're using a short backswing, your follow-through is still there.
So those are the first four factors. The fifth, I think I noticed myself, when you delivered those two bowls, the heavy bowl, you gripped very tightly.
Yes, yes,
and
indeed.
There was hardly any grip.
Yes.
When you bowled the bowl on the fast green.
That's correct. So the last one is the amount of grip on the bowl. The heavy bowl, it could be a heavy green, it can be a wet green, it can be adverse conditions, but when, of course, you get on the fast greens, they're beautiful conditions. So that is when you're really caressing the bowl. You're just letting it lay in your hand and just roll off your fingertips. Nice and relaxed, nice and smooth, nice and flowing.
Now, it sounds very, very complicated. There's a lot of mechanics to it. 5 points, which allow you to vary your control of length. But when you are playing one match on one green, you've still got a variation between a short jack and a long jack. So the same factors come into play there.
Well, I think automatically your mind will regulate to the average pace of the green. And the average pace of the green, of course, is the medium-length jack. You will start on your trial ends on long jacks. You will try to conquer that, but you will then start varying. The jack will be varied. Either you would change the length or your opponents would change the length. But what should come through to your brain is like a little computer, but what should come through is the average pace of the green. And you will regulate your stance and your backswing, etc., to that average pace. And then, when you've got a long jack, you will remember you've got to push it a bit more, so you will automatically increase your backswing slightly and increase your step slightly.
So it's an automatic,
it's an automatic thing. But I think, really, it's the tempo and the length of step that's got to be grooved to the heights of the stance.
Mm-hmm. And you can certainly be thinking too much about it.
That's certainly correct. In my own particular case, and I will just mention this, my own particular case with my own stance, I start from the crouch. And mine is a little bit more involved because I have to come up to my stance. Now on a fast green, I'm coming up and through. On an average pace green, I'm coming up and through. On a heavy green, I'm coming right up and through.
So that's your height of stance?
That's my height of stance. I'm starting from there when coming up. The athletic stance is coming from here and going down.
The other interesting thing you did, David, was to hold the bowl and jiggle it up and down a number of times. You haven't mentioned that.
Well, I was going to mention this in actual delivery. I will actually deliver a bowl now and talk you through my thoughts as I deliver the bowl. Mm-hmm. Right, now, we'll imagine this is a free-running green, free-running to fast green. I'm playing a full-length jack. I have a point of aim, a peg on the bank down there, and I'm going to line myself up with that. I point my right foot down the green. I bring my left foot alongside it. I drop down into my crouch position. Now I'm looking at my point of aim, and I'm saying to myself, right, I've got to go down that line. I know that line is correct, because I've been delivering bowls on it. But I've now got to look at the jack. I've got to say, well, how much do I need to get this to down there? That's what I've got to be thinking about. I've got to get this bowl to that next jack. I look back to my point of aim, back to the jack, back to the point of aim, back to the jack. Those who've watched bowls on television will see Ian Shoeback do this all the time. He's not, I know he's played a bit of tennis, but he hasn't done Wimbledon that many times. But his eyes are going from jack to point of aim, jack to point of aim all the time. And that is purely and simply trying to get the correlation between the two. So, as I said, I'm doing that now, and when I am satisfied that I've got the correlation, I weigh the bowl and I think this is the weight of the bowl and it's got to go from here to there. Eyes firmly fixed on the point of aim, and they mustn't come off now. I've got to keep them firmly fixed. I rise up, go into my delivery, and away it goes. And going backwards and forwards between the two doing that, you should get a good result. Now, my bowl isn't too bad. Dead on the line. In this we have 3 different length jacks, a full-length jack, a medium-length jack, and a very short jack. The idea is to show weight control over the 3 different distances. The first jack is a full-length jack, and this requires a higher position, a slightly longer stride, slightly longer backswing, and I think possibly a more exaggerated follow-through. The medium-length jack requires perhaps a possibly lower action, a slower tempo, not such a long backswing, shorter step, and a nice steady follow-through. With the third delivery, when it's a very short jack, And we see that the backswing is shortened very, very much. The knee is dropped at the point of delivery, and the whole action, by comparison, with certainly the first delivery and second, is very, very much slower and very, very much closer to the ground. The speed of the green is of the utmost importance, and it is really due to the resistance of the grass. If there's very little resistance on the grass, as in a fast outfield at cricket, if it wasn't for the boundary or the boundary fence, the ball would keep on going for a long, long way. And it's exactly the same on a bowling green. On a very fast green where there's little resistance with the grass, a bowl, if it's travelling at speed, will go to the other end very quickly. And if the bank and ditch wasn't there, it would just keep on going and going and going. So in actual fact, for a bowl to be delivered over the full length of the green, and to stop at the end, it has to be delivered quite slowly, because it just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. So on a fast green, it takes a long time to get to the jack. On a heavy green, it gets there very quickly because the long grass or softer grass pulls it up very quickly.
Now, we hear about timing the green, and that's all about quantifying it, I suppose, is it?
Yes, indeed. It's usually timed over a distance of 90 feet or 30 yards. And if the bowl comes to rest within a yard or 3 feet of the jack, on the length of the jack, then that is acceptable and the time recorded stands. Usually there are 4 or 5 bowls recorded within a yard and the average is taken.
So we can expect a faster green to be longer, or take a longer time than the slow one.
Yes, indeed. A very, very heavy green is about 9 seconds. A very fast green, by standards in the southern hemisphere, may be over 20.
Well, this is an average indoor green. It'd be quite interesting to time it and see how long your bowl takes to get from the mat to the jack, which we've placed 30 yards away.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's have a go.
Well, that one, David, was timed at 14.85, which means we're approaching a 15-second green. Well, we've dealt with most of the theory about how bowls is played. Now, if we're going to put it into practice, we're going to play shots. How many different kinds of shots are there?
Well, there's the draw, the running shot, the firm, what I call the firm shot, and the drive.
So if we start with the draw, that's getting your bowl, presumably, as near to the jack as possible. Or is there more to it than that?
Well, normally we're drawing to the jack. You're trying to get close to the jack, but having got close to the jack and built a reasonable head, so to speak, that's what we call the collection of balls round the jack, we then have to start to look whether we're going to protect the head in some way by playing a short bowl in the way, or perhaps play a positional bowl round the back of the head in case the jack gets moved. So it's not all about just drawing to the jack. It's building a head, it's playing positional bowls. So when we're not actually drawing to the jack, we can say we are playing a positional bowl.
So if you're drawing, shall we say, to a place on the green where there are no bowls and there are no jacks, do you visualize a jack there?
Yes, you have to visualize the arc your bowl will take to that position and adjust your green accordingly. You've always got an idea of the correct line on the backhand or the forehand, and if we say it's on the backhand and it's across what we call narrow of the jack, on the forehand side of the jack, you have to take less green and possibly, if you wish to play short, slightly less weight.
But drawing is very much the basic shot in the game.
Drawing is what I call the bread and butter shot of the game. You may be brilliant at playing all the other shots, but if you can't draw, you're never going to be a top player. the draw shot is more important than any other.
And in your 40 years' experience, you've won more games through drawing than anything else, I would guess.
Yes, I've possibly been known for my attacking shots, etc., but I've always insisted that the draw shot is the most important. It's not been much good being able to take balls off when your opponent's got them there if you can't draw to save when there's nothing to take out.
Interesting there, you mentioned attacking shots. Now, attacking shots are shots that you used with weight? With what in mind?
Attacking shot is usually played with several yards of weight. You vary the weight according to what you need to do, but usually play it with several yards of weight, and because it's an attacking shot, it implies that your opponent holds the shots. You know, he has all the position. However, there are instances when you play attacking shot to take possibly just one bowl out. Your opponent may have just that one bowl in the head which is stopping you from a count. You may actually hold the shot, but he has second bowl. And if you take that bowl out, you can probably get 5 or 6, which of course can win a match. So it's not always because your opponent has shots there that you're playing the attacking shot, or the running bowl as we call it. It may be to convert to a big count for yourself.
So technically, when you're attacking, when you were using a running bowl, what have you got to do in terms of technique? Why is it different from a draw?
When you play a drawing shot, you take maximum arc to the jack. In other words, you go out, you take the biggest arc you can possibly take to finish on the jack. Immediately you cut your green, you play a smaller arc, your bowl is going to run narrow of the jack. Now, if you play extra weight, and you get the amount of weight right, it will come onto the jack and actually hit the jack. So, the narrower the arc you take, the more you have to increase the weight to hit the jack. Now, of course, we're not always talking about hitting the jack. The same thing applies to hitting bowls. So if your opponent has 2 or 3 bowls around the jack, you can cut your green by half, take a new mark completely, and bowl 4 or 5 more yards weight, and you should, if the green is of that particular pace, you should then come into the head and remove your opponent's cluster of bowls.
So we're still really talking about line and length, and it's putting the two things together.
Very much so. You cannot play running shots successfully unless you know the weight of the green, the weight and the draw of the green. If you are drawing well, you're taking the right line and you're bowling a good length, then you can play the more delicate shots, the shots with a yard of weight, 2 yards of weight, 3 yards of weight. In other words, you're governing the speed. You've got it at your fingertips, and you could cut your green by a foot or 2 feet or whatever it may be and cut it with accuracy. You've got the feel of the green, you know what the green's doing. But everything stems from bowling a good length and a good green.
So, David, why don't you show us a few of those shots?
Right, we'll try the trial then on the backhand. 2 or 3 yards of weight, just trail jack 6 to 8 feet. And off the forehand, the rest shot. Try and wrest the bowl away from the jack and take its place. And now the wick shot. We have to play this with more weight because we're looking hit the bowls that come across on the angle to take out various bowls. So this is probably played with 5 or 6 yards of weight to make sure that you get plenty of impact off the forehand. And lastly, but not the least by any means, the run-through shot, where we're playing to run through a single bowl or several bowls. Again, this requires more weight, and the amount of weight it would be governed by the distance it has to travel after the run through. First one off the backhand, we'll play it with 4 or 5 yards of weight.
Looking to destroy the in and thus start again. He's trailing at the moment by 8 shots. He has had a sighter with his first drive. Let's see if he can hit it with this one. Here it comes. It's close. There it goes.
A firing signal from Bryant. He's standing up for this one.
For the shot bowl, getting the jack into the ditch. 2 shots to England.
The drive, or fire as it's sometimes known, is usually used to destroy an end. In other words, if you or your team haven't done too well, or your opponents have done exceptionally well and got a cluster of balls round the jack and got you in a very, very difficult position, and you're obviously going to lose a few shots if it isn't altered, you have to look at it objectively and say, well, can I draw and beat these shots, or had I better try and take a few out? And you have to weigh it up, really. You may say, well, I could draw and beat them, but that is the harder shot to play. The easier shot to play is going to be to get in amongst them with plenty of weight and take a few out. So then you have to go straight down the middle of the rink, if it's possible. Well, at least I'm a great believer in going straight down the middle of the rink. I'm a great believer in going as straight as possible, because if you can go straight at it, you haven't got to worry about allowing the bow to bend or anything like that. You haven't got to gauge it right. You've just got to go straight at it and hope you're accurate. But you can use this, as I say, to take balls out. You can take it, use it to burn the end, that is, make a dead end, to drive the jack out of the confines of the rink. You can, on the other hand, use it to take a single ball out. If you're lying 4 or 5 shots and your opponent suddenly draws the shot or second bowl, and it's the only one he's got in there, if you can get through a hole and take that bowl out, you're going to have your 4 or 5 shots back.
So normally it's used as a destructive weapon, but occasionally with positive results.
Yes, occasionally with positive results to obtain shots. You might have 4 or 5 against you, for instance, and you might have 4 or 5 best backwoods, so you can drive to put the jack in the ditch, which will give you 5 or 6 shots.
Now, in terms of running shots and firing shots, you said they're not easy to play. What would you advise? Practice?
Yes, we go out and practice the draw shot, and quite rightly too. If you don't practice any other shot, practice a draw shot, because, as I've said, that is the bread and butter shot of bowls. You can't get by without it. So therefore, that's the first shot to practice. The second shot to practice is not the running shot at all, it's the drive. Now, the reason I say this, in any sport, to really test your mechanical ability, it's to do it under pressure. In other words, when you're forcing. If you're forcing any shot in any other sport, if you're forcing a shot at snooker, if you're forcing a shot at cricket, trying to hit a ball hard through the covers, it's when you're imparting that much more power behind it, that's when things go wrong. If your technique is sound, it will be smooth. So therefore, go out and fully test your action by driving at the jack, and try and increase your power, yet maintain the smoothness.
How much power are you going for? Are you going for full power?
I drive, when I'm driving well and I'm in practice, I'm driving as fast as I can drive and maintaining accuracy.
Is there a danger of sacrificing accuracy for speed?
A great danger if you don't practice. That is my whole point. A great danger if you don't practice.
And I remember watching myself in New Zealand when you won the world singles title. There's a story behind that. The very last shot you played, in fact, the last 2 shots you played on the last end against Willie Wood.
It certainly was probably the most memorable occasion. We left the green at 22-all. We were playing 25 shots up. We left the green at 22-all. We were off the green for well over an hour, something like an hour and a half. And I walked out with Willie, who's a very great friend of mine. And I said to Willie, well, we've been in the pavilion now for an hour and a half. Do you realise we might go out here and play one end, and that's it? But little did I dream for 1 minute that was what was going to happen. We were allowed a trial end both ways. Willie played a little bit better than I did. Willie, as he'd scored the shot on the previous end to make it 22-all, he went first. He bowled a reasonable bowl within a yard of the jack. I went behind. He drew another one, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to be in trouble here if I don't watch it. So I came up again. I went through again. He then drew a third shot, and I fired, and I took 2 of them out. So that made me feel better. He's now got two woods off the green, so he can't get 3 and run out. So he draws another one with his last bow, and it was a bit of a target. So I thought, well, I don't know. I'll go for the bowl. I can take it out. I'm going to possibly get the shot. If I hit the jack throw, I'm going to score more than one. So I went for the bowl, and I hit the ball absolutely full. And I drove it through onto his other bowl, which was behind the jack. That bowl went into the ditch, and his bowl stopped. But my own ball that I fired followed through and hit it again, and hit it right under the string. And the only bowl he had on the rink was on the string, and I had the 3 shots I needed to win the game. It was a freak shot, but it was not a fluke because I hit what I went for.
It was noticeable, David, that the stance you adopted for the draw and the running bowl was very similar, your crouch stance.
Yes.
So when you fire, you use an entirely different delivery.
Yes, well, I use the athletic stance purely and simply that I can get a long backswing, a long step, and plenty of power, plenty of weight over the bowl, because I believe in going as straight as I possibly can.
Can you talk us through the theory of this firing stance?
Well, I step onto the mat, and it's the same thing. The right foot creates the line, so therefore I point it at the jack, because that is my point of aim, the jack, whereas before, with the draw, it would have been the bank. Now I'm going straight at the jack, bring the other foot up alongside it, and I line up and drive straight at it. I find that if I get my feet alongside each other, I can go straight at the jack. Notice I'm going off the backhand. If I go off the forehand, there is a slight variation. I still point the right foot, but I bring the other foot slightly in front. Now what that does is turn the hips, which allows me to come through, and I find that I can go straight at the jack then with accuracy. But if I adopt the same stances for the backhand, I'm usually a bit narrow. So I adjust my feet, which makes me pivot the hips a little bit, and I find that I'm pretty accurate off the forehand. I used to be, at one time, a backhand driver and not so good off the forehand, but I now seem to have adjusted successfully to either hand.
And you're going for as much power as you can get without losing accuracy.
Yes, yes.
Right, let's have a look at it.
I line up the right foot, line up with the jack, lean slightly into it.
Well, David, we've talked a lot about delivering the bowls, drawing weight and running bowls, and quite often at the jack. That's the target. We haven't talked at all about delivering the jack itself. Is that important?
The jack is very, very important because really the team or individual who has the jack really declares the length or the distance to which they're going to play. So if you have an advantage over your opponent because you're playing long jacks better than he is, you're obviously going to play long jacks, or vice versa if it's short jacks. But how many people can throw a jack? It's really surprising to find out. I would say that only really 20% people can really throw a jack properly. At least a third of the bowlers don't even hold the jack correctly. They tend to palm it, and they cannot understand why it goes off on a tangent. Now, if you have the cradle delivery, where you drop the bowl in your palm of your hand, you deliver the bowl quite well. But if you try to cradle a jack, it is going to go all over the place. The correct way to hold a jack is by holding it in the fingers with the thumb at 2 o'clock. And you are really delivering a miniature bowl, if you like. But the thumb at 2 o'clock is absolutely crucial. I twist my wrist, so I'm going to deliver this jack exactly as I would deliver a bowl, and everybody should do that. If they twist their wrist with a bowl, they should twist their wrist with a jack. If they deliver a bowl with a palm up the green, they should bring it back and do it the same way. But the important thing is to hold it in the fingers and put the thumb at 2 o'clock. And when you deliver the jack, aim it at something. Now, obviously, you're trying to get the jack in the middle of the rink, so you aim it at the number plate at the far end. So you take care and you deliver the jack with as much care as you would a bowl. And hopefully it will go straight down the middle of the rink. Like that one.
Now, I noticed you watched that jack all the way down the rink. Now, a lot of people put the jack down and turn their back on it.
Yes, a lot of players, good players, could do that, put the jack down, turn the back on, because it would stay in the middle of the rink, because they're delivering it properly. But if you have trouble in delivering a jack properly, then you must watch it down the middle of the rink, because it doesn't come easy to you, so therefore you've got to give it extra care. But, I mean, I'll put a jack down, and after it's gone so far, I'll turn, see it's all right, I'll turn and go away and get my bowl. I don't need to watch it all the way down, because I know I've got the right weight behind it when I put it down. I might take the mat up the green, still turn me back on and get a bowl, because I've got a pretty good idea what I put behind the jack. I don't find throwing the jack at all hard. In fact, I find it easier than delivering the bowls.
Well, thank you, David, for letting us into the secrets of the champion's approach. You've shown us how to choose a bowl, how to grip it, how to deliver it, and shown us the variety of shots that we can play. Now it's up to us. And what final advice would you have for anyone aspiring to become a champion?
Well, there's no doubt about it. Whatever sport you play, practice makes perfect. If you don't believe that, you may as well pack the game in if you're trying to improve. But it's been shown over the years that people are born into a sport. Probably the best champions have been started very young. They've been introduced by their parents and have obviously found it much easier to get into the groove, if you like. It comes natural to them. They're able to adapt to these various techniques. And in fact, their mechanical ability becomes so good that they do it without even thinking about it. It's automatic to them. And they have to rely on that, or any player has to rely on that mechanical ability all through his playing life. Under pressure, that is what counts, being able to produce the goods, the shots, and, you know, and there you have to have complete confidence in your mechanical ability.
The pipe is there, as it has been for virtually 10 days of competition for David Bryant.
Changes his hand. 2 shots.
So complete confidence in mechanical ability, technique, whatever you like to call it, has to be there. It just doesn't happen. As I've said, there's a lot of practice that's got to take place, but allied to this has got to be deep concentration. Practice is no good without concentration. If you're practicing for half an hour and you're concentrating, and then you practice for the next 10 minutes without concentrating, forget it, pack it in. It's a waste of time. You must have full concentration during practice.
Very disappointing morning so far from David Bryant, not yet firing on all cylinders. If he can score on this end, which he should, barring accidents, then we're waiting for him to start a comeback.
That looks to be 2 for England. David Bryant has closed the gap.
In sport, I always believe you have to be disciplined. Your whole approach has to be disciplined. You have to believe in yourself, but you have to discipline yourself not to do stupid things on the field or off the field. It has to be a very disciplined approach. You have to perhaps, there are various temptations. You have to desist from those temptations and play a good, tight, sensible game. Experience, of course, is another factor. You can only acquire experience by playing in the sport for a long time, or putting a lot of hours in at the game. Not necessarily a long time, putting a lot of hours in. A lot of practice, but a lot of competitive play as well. There's no substitute for competitive play. Temperament, of course, is another great thing. That's usually where so many great players fall down. At the last minute, their temperament goes. People say they lost their bottle, they cracked. So therefore, temperament is terrifically important. It's something you are born with or you're not born with. If you are not one of the fortunate ones that have good temperament, then you have to put extra discipline into your approach, not to show that you're rattled. You have to believe in yourself. All these things are vitally important, but if you can still do all those things, put in all those hours, and still really enjoy it, and say, I really enjoy this game, it's the greatest game I've ever played, then you've got a very, very good chance of making it.
Bryant going for the shot bowl. Gone. He's got it again, and he's got both the Scottish bowls out. David Bryant is the new champion of the world. What a shot. What a result. David Bryant has won the championship of the world for the third time.